Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hiohomi Takiape, Ava Cordovi, Machiape, Malakota, and Tas Pueblo. My Tama is Joseph Conquilla Cordova. My Ina and my Ka is Patricia Crow Cordova. I'm sixth generation from Chief Red Cloud. I'm the owner operator of AC and Associates, and I'm so thankful that you can be here. Happy holidays. Um, Happy Monday. Happy Motivation Monday. Thank you for joining me. So, if you're here today, then thank you. Let us know where you're checking in from in the comments. Let us know where you're, who you are, what you're doing. Let us know whatever you want us to know in the comments. So, why am I here? I am here because I've challenged myself for the month of December to go live every single day. And there's no agenda really when I'm on here by myself. I usually just hang out with you. If you guys have seen yesterday's live or the day before that's live, I actually went live like last night at 10:30 in the night. I was with my takojas or my grandchildren, and we were reading you all books. So that's what we've been doing for the last two nights. I've had different friends and guests come on to speak with us, to speak with you all, to speak with me. And this is just a friendly conversation that we're having. So I'm really excited that you guys can join us. Please remember to like it, to share it. Invite your friends and families, your sisters, brothers, cousins, uncles, um, your aunties or unchis. We're gonna be talking about a lot of great things today, and just a forewarning: if you see my takoshas coming in and asking me for something, I'm here with my grandchildren, and this is live, so they might just pop in. But today we have a very special guest, somebody who I'm really excited to get to know a little bit more about, to get to hear some things about. She is the creator of the Real Native Roots Untold Stories podcast, and she is here today. So I'm going to have her introduce herself. I'm going to bring her on now. She's in our green room. So here she comes. And it is, hi, Vicky.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for being here and thank you for showing up. So why don't you tell our guests who you are?
Yes. Hello, guests. Ya te siya ya Vicky old man winchya sana jininish la hush listening fashish chin khona ani edish che but ani edish nala. Black Street of the Forest people, mud people, one who walks around and folding arm people. Originally, I'm from a place called Kalugi, which is Butterfly Butte. Currently reside in Rio Rancho on Tiwo Pueblo lands. My parents, Shema is Betty, though Shaja is Jim, both currently on the reservation. So, and I'm a mom. So I'm a mom of two adult young men and auntie, mom, sister, relative. So good to meet you all. And thank you for having me come. And I also just want to do a quick shout out to our friend Jennifer. So thank you, Jen.
Yes, Hollywood.
That's right. AKA
So
Hollywood.
so Jennifer Varenchek is one of my closest girlfriends, and she was my very first guest on this show. She always supports
Okay.
me in every entity that I'm doing, and she connected us. And I was asking her, just send me not anybody, but like, send me great people or invite. She's all, do you want me to invite this person? I'm all, invite anybody you want, because I know she has a good group of friends and supporters. So that's how we met. And then um, we connected and we had a little bit of a chance to say what we were going to talk about. So some of the things that we had mentioned was one of the things was, how are you connecting? And one of the ways that me and you are connecting is today's show. But how is everybody else connecting, and what does that mean to you? How are you connecting to your wellness? How are you connecting to your mental health? How are you connecting to your traditional values? How are you connecting generally? So I'm going to ask the audience that, and then also, if you'd like to, Vicky, touch on the subject, then let's talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think connecting is so important. I feel like the older that I've gotten, the more that I understand that deeply. Like I feel like I'm going deeper with that. Whereas before, I feel like when I was younger, didn't I probably did it, but I wasn't more intentional about it. I think in the last, I would say in the last 10 years, more specifically in the last 7 years, I really understood what that meant. And like I think about our my grandparents, like they were doing it all the time, all day. The minute they get up, they would go out and pray, like they were connecting with something higher than them, right? Creator. But they were also standing and they were giving offerings. So they were connecting in that way as well. And then, and I just think about like when my grandfather would eat, in his, the Nepata, the Navajo language, after he eat, he would pat his body, like from his feet all the way up, and say, like, may this food give me energy, may it help me, may it help me a good mindset, help me to do what I need to do. So in that form, connecting with food, connecting with self and blessing self, like there's so many ways in how I saw it and I practice it, but they didn't sit down and talk to you about it like, well, that's what you're doing, right? And now that I'm older and I have children and I'm trying to be a good role model with them, I really try to encourage, having them experiment with different modalities like meditation, journaling, sitting down and whatever's in our mind to put it on paper. Because when our mind goes all over the place and we can't concentrate, the best way is to just write it down because then your brain sees that it's there. And so you're recognizing it. And of course, like art journaling, I have done a lot of that where if I didn't feel like writing, I would just scribble or draw or whatever. And it's funny, one time I took meditation classes. I don't know. I think I had a misconception of what it was. And I knew everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in my circle were doing it. So I took a course about 10 years ago. And I think about it was like a 10-week course. And about halfway through, I realized I've been doing meditation all along. I just didn't call it that, and it is when you are like when you're rug weaving, for example, and you're just fully present in the moment. You're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about the past. You're not thinking about the future. You're fully present. Then I realized this is what meditation is, or when we're gardening or walking and you're not thinking about anything else but just being in the moment. So I feel like those are some examples of connection. And I feel like when we practice that, we're better human beings. Like I'm able to listen to you fully, right? I'm not. Oh, something happened to my video. I think it's my internet connection. So,
You're here. I hear you. But you did stick for a minute. Go ahead.
so anyway, I just feel like we're better human beings when we are connected with ourselves the most. And of course, in our native way, it's not just about ourselves, it's about everything around us, nature, our relatives. And I find that these days it's so fast going. Everything is on the internet. I mean, there are definitely positive things about social media and the internet. It's just how we manage that in our lives. So I feel like I've been talking a lot. So I don't know if you want to add anything to what you heard.
No, I really love everything that you have to say because when you're saying to journal things or to write them down, you're connecting with what you're thinking. So
Mhm.
writing them down and seeing them on paper, not just having them in your mind. My sister always tells me because I always come up with these crazy ideas, and she's like, "You need to write it down. You need to write it down." Because I never in the past have done. I mean, I have, but they just come up and I'll just say them out loud. And she's like, "That's a good idea. You need to write it down." The other thing that I heard you say is when your father was eating and he would pat himself down. I remember my dad always when before we ate, he would um pick the food, each piece of the food like a spirit plate, but he would have it in a little bowl and he would go around to each one of us, each one of the family members and have us breathe in it like that. And then he would take it out to pray. That was us connecting with the meal, connecting with each other, connecting to a higher power when he went outside and prayed. So I always like to tell my family, we don't just put a spirit plate out for Thanksgiving. It's not our Thanksgiving, it's not just that day. It's every single day. Even when I'm at a restaurant or when I'm eating, I'll take a little piece and I'll put it to the side and I'll say a prayer. And that doesn't necessarily like I don't make a big spirit plate for everybody. That's just my own
Mhm.
connection to my own ancestors and the way that my dad taught me. So although I do make a bigger spirit plate for like special holidays and stuff. That's my own way of connecting. But I love what you're saying because it is true. As we grow older, as I grow older and wiser, I'm able to connect to different things in my community. I recently had a brunch where we had a cedar blessing by Brian Friedro. And one of the things that I feel like I need to do in my community is make sure that my community is okay, make sure my community is heard, and make sure that if I can, I try to assist and help the larger community, not just myself. So the reason for the brunch was because as we were coming out of pandemic, I was thinking of all those essential workers, those mental health workers, those individuals that were helping us, that we all turned to. And I thought, who's helping that mental health worker? Who
Mhm.
is helping that hospital worker that is on a COVID unit that was the only person in the last days of those individuals to be standing there? Those triggers or those traumas that they went through were solely them and that other person, but who's helping them? And that's the main reason why I wanted to have that brunch, is to recognize those people that we may not always recognize. Our therapists, yeah, they help, excuse me, they help us, they give us tips, they help us go through our lives, but how are they, helping themselves? So that was the whole premise behind that brunch. But connecting is very important. I love to connect both to my friends, my family, my takojas, my makus, my grandchildren. Just like last night, we were reading on live, we were reading the books and they kept bringing out books. So it started out like with 4 books, and then they wanted 5 books, and then they wanted 6 books, and then they wanted 7 books. And I was like, no, 5 is okay. But I was like, why am I stopping them from wanting to read, wanting
Mm.
to give back to other people? So we definitely read all the books that they wanted.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just a different connection that I have with them. They're 4 and they're 7 years old, and they always want to be by my side. Even when I went to the restroom the other day, you see their hands sticking underneath the door, wanting to connect with you. And that's a connection that I have with them that I tell my daughter, you know, don't compare my relationship with my grandchildren to anybody else's relationship. Like, not with her mother in law, not with her grandmother, because my relationship is a lot different. And you're not going to get the same relationship with me and my grandchildren that you're going to get with somebody else. Just
Mhm.
like my relationship with Jennifer, I can tell that girl anything and she won't judge me. She'll laugh and she'll support me, but she will not um she'll be there to help me think it through, to encourage me and to support me. So however it is that we're connecting, whether it be traditional, modern, or just everyday, I think it's so important that we bring up this topic.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. I did watch a little bit of the video. I thought it was so cute. A couple of things that came to my mind as I was listening to you share different examples from your perspective and what you've experienced is the 4 things that I heard was like help, and then I want to say something about the children, COVID, and boundaries. And so, based on what you've said, what came to my mind is like with connection. I think that when we have a good connection, when we are connected, it does make it easier to ask for help. And part of that is, it's hard. It is so hard to ask for help. I tell people all the time, ask for help. And in several cases, particularly this past year, I was not really practicing that. And it led to me getting to a point in my life where my body couldn't hold the emotion anymore. And I just like cried. It's one of those ugly cries, you're you know, and you can't stop crying. And I'm like, what is this about? And I knew it was because I needed to release, I needed to ask, I needed to just tell someone. And connecting is even just sitting and listening, not
Mhm.
offering advice, not telling them what to do, but you just be with somebody and letting them cry and letting them, just release. So when you had said you were talking about helping, it made me think about with connection is that it's about being there with someone and just seeing and witnessing them as people, right? And then he had mentioned about children, and it just made me think about science says our little guys, I think all the way up to maybe about 7. Don't quote me, but I know at that age, from infant to that, like the everything that we do and everything that we try to mold them is that's the critical age. So they're like hungry, right? They want to be touched, and how we as human beings want to be touched, and which kind of leads me to COVID, because when COVID happened, I just really, I'm getting emotional, felt for people who are by themselves and who didn't even have an animal. There were some people who said, "I'm so glad I have a dog," because we couldn't, there was a moment of time when we couldn't even have physical connection with another being. And even for me, it was my son and I, we would hug each other every day. We still do that, but hug each other every day, like heart to heart. We always do the heart to heart, and we hold each other for, 30 seconds, sometimes longer, and take deep breaths, because during COVID, I was like, son, you're the only thing that I have at this moment in terms of physical connection. He said, me too. And we're both just like took deep breaths. So if anything, I think COVID taught us about connection. And I'm really hoping that people still honor like how we connected. I mean, the web, the internet extended our connections. Like during COVID, I met so many people that I would never thought I would have never met if that didn't happen. So it has been a gift in that way of seeing how it's physical connection, but also spatial connection, right? And then the other thing you had said earlier, it just made me think about when people want connection. There's also, I think we have to be mindful of boundaries, like how much connection is enough for you, right? What is okay and what is not okay, and to start practicing expressing that, in terms of what you need and what's comfortable and what's not, because I think sometimes with connection it can be overwhelming for others, and we have to be mindful about that and about where our folks are at. So I just wanted to just circle back on those things that I heard, but it also made me think about how that's relevant to connection.
Mm. I I wanna piggyback on one of the things that you said during COVID. I know that um, I was actually with my grandchildren for 3 months here in Las Vegas. I'm in Las Vegas right now. I'm a visitor here on the Snow Mountain Paiute lands. So when we were here, it was just us in the home. And the reason why I came is because, my daughter, she lost her childcare, and that person that was able to watch her wasn't able to watch the kids no more. So she was like, "Mom, can you help me? Can you come out and help watch the kids for me?" Because I was and I am still able to do that. I do a lot of my work online and virtually. And at that time, she got sick. A lot of people were getting sick, and for me to come into the household and be able to connect with them, to be able to, drop what I was doing in Los Angeles and come out here and be here for COVID for that time period. I didn't think I thought I was going to be here for like 2 weeks. We didn't really say how long it was going to be. It was just, can you come help me? And that's what I did. And her grandmother, which would be the my grandkids' great grandmother, always says, if Jackie needs anything, you just go and you help her. And I am thankful that I have the ability to do that. I've been a consultant or a contract worker or individual for entrepreneur for less than 3 years. And in those 3 years, I started um I started at a time, October 2019, so right before COVID hit, and I was thankful that I didn't have to go to a job that was a punch in, clock in type of job, 9 to 5, where you had to be there. And, these connections that we have in the world, whether it be family, friends, community, they're connections. They're things that we connect to. And for me to be able to give my whole heart to my daughter in a time when she needed is something that I will always do. But also, asking for help, that's one of the things that she did, was ask for help, and I responded. And sometimes she'll tell me, she'll be telling me stuff, or she'll vent to me, and I'm a mother, and I try to fix things, and I'm a fixer too. So she'll be, I'll say, did you do this, did you do this, we have to do this. She's all, Mom, all I need for you to do is listen. That's
Mm,
all I need for you to do. And like you were saying, and that has helped me too, because when people start talking to me and they start asking me, or they want to connect and they want to do the A, B, or C, my wheels start turning. Right away I'm thinking, who can I connect them to? What resources can I provide them? Because for 13 and a half years, I was a case coordinator or a case manager, connecting people to meeting their mental health goals. But when my daughter said, Mom, all I need for you to do is listen, just in that single minute, that's all I could do, was listen to her. And after that, after the cries and after everything was so great, and hold on just a moment. Everything was so great, and it was um, it was a time for me and her to bond and connect at that time too, by listening. But I gotta just put you on hold for one moment. Why don't you start talking? Because my grandkid, I can hear her calling me. So
absolutely. So, well, folks, it looks like I have you for a minute or so before she gets back. What else do I want to tell you? So I'm just going to build on what she said about like really listening and honoring that. And as you are connecting with a friend or a relative, they're sharing something very deep and vulnerable with you, to just sit, because we individuals, each and every one of us, we're resilient. We are strong. We can hold that kind of emotion. Um, and it may be uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's okay. The other thing that I've learned is that once we become comfortable with sitting with emotion, it is so healthy, that we're releasing. And a lot of times we don't, we hold it in, we hold in whatever we're feeling, and then it affects our body. I feel like that's why we have a lot of physical ailments going on, a lot of sickness going on, because we're not releasing, we're not connecting, we're not connecting with ourselves to understand what our body needs, and understanding how we need to release whatever is going on in our mind, and also connecting with people to ask for help. So being in that space is hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, sitting with emotions and going through it. And I feel like, from personal experience, and still even to this day, when I know something's happening and I'm upset or sad or whatever it is, I sit with the emotion and I name it. I just, go through the storm, and then I always feel so much better. And there are times when I feel like I can't, and it's overwhelming or it's big. I will call a friend. I will call a friend. I have friends that are really good at listening. So they don't give advice. They don't tell me what to do. They just sit and honor what I'm going through at that time. Welcome back.
thank you. It's different when I have little kids that I need to she'll go, well, my granddaughter, she goes to the restroom, and she'll go to the restroom by herself, and it's really good because we don't have to tell her anymore. But then you'll hear, Grandma, I
Oh,
went poop. So we have to go in there and help her. But thank you. I didn't think that would happen during this time. but she's in her room now and she's taken care of. But I appreciate you. And some of the things that I heard you say was that you have different friends that you can talk to and call. And I know different people call me as well. And there's some expertise that I do have and I don't have. And sometimes some people will call and want to talk to me, and I don't have the expertise in that, and I don't want to provide them with um, wrong information or information that I don't know. So sometimes individuals will be like, well, I'll just call my friends that are married or, can listen to me. But there are other times when I can just listen and, just be a sounding board. And that's what Jen does for me a lot. I'll call and I'll be like, "Ah," and I'm like, thank you for listening after. And she'll do the same, is just call and tell me whatever, or she'll vent, or and that's it. That's all she needs to do, and just have somebody hear what it is, whether it be disappointment, excitement, or something else that is big in her life. And I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I appreciate that she trusts me enough to call me and just want to do that. Other times, asking for help for me is really hard as well because I'm a private person and I don't want all of my information out in the world. That's my whole thing, is like, if I if you are in my circle and I trust you enough to tell you something, I'm hopeful that, and I know in my inner circle that it won't go out in the world. That's the whole big thing about me, is personal, my personal life. I want to keep it personal. It's hard sometimes, but other than that, I'm always down to talk. I'm always down to listen. I'm always down to be a sounding board for whoever wants to be there or talk to me.
Well, there's one thing that you said I think is important, because in Yargon, I was letting folks know to, it takes vulnerability, right, to sit with emotion, and then if you're with a friend, listening to them. And one thing that I've learned is like there are different kinds of listening, right? So there's listening where folks are right now. I don't know if folks are on, but if they're listening, there's background noise, and
Mhm.
so like I heard your grandchild, right? So my ears kind of went there, like what's he crying about? And in that moment, right, my ears went away from you. So, when we start to do distracted listening, we're not paying attention to the person in front of us.
Mhm.
So that's sort of like distracted listening. Then there's another listening where it's like self listening. And self listening is like you and I are talking, and then I start thinking like, oh yeah, I know what she means. Oh, I want to say this, and I remember this experience. And then you're still talking, but I'm having my own internal thought that also is, we all do that. And when you do those two things, it's really important to come back to the person because you'll miss something. And
Mhm.
I've done it where I've been in meetings, or maybe someone's a long-winded talker and my mind goes off. And then they'll say, what do you think, Vicky? And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know what they asked. Like, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please? So there's those two, right? And then there's heart listening
Mhm.
um where you really are. There's another listening, but the last, I don't want to keep talking about it, but the last part of listening is really kind of listening fully. So as I'm listening to you, or you're listening to a friend or a colleague, you can, and especially if it's something deep, you can almost feel what they're feeling. Like you're almost ready to cry with them, like, or you
Mhm.
get goosebumps, right? Or they're saying things, but they're not telling you exactly what it is. So you can hear the root of what their needs are, of what their wants are. And that is what you call heart listening. And that's the goal, is when you are sitting with someone in a hard place, you're just listening. You're just listening deeply, and you're feeling with them, right? Um, and I feel like we've gotten away from that. I mean,
Mhm.
in our way, when I say our way, like our indigenous way is listening. We grew up listening very
Mhm.
young, right? I always remember like when people would pray and talk for a long time, and my parents are like, shh, Navajo, listen, and so we grew up listening, right? And so I feel like coming back to that and really hearing people fully before even saying anything, before even engaging, is really important. So I think that's an important element of connecting is doing some real heartfelt listening.
Mm, I love that. My sister talks about heart work and the work that you do that means a lot to you, and the things that you do that doesn't feel like work. It feels more of like just an everyday thing because it means so much to you that you love it so much that it doesn't even feel like work. So heart work and heart listening, or I love what you're saying, is because a lot of the times too, what you were saying, and I'm going to connect on two different things with what I've learned about you, that I feel that it's common with indigenous people, because other people have told me recently that they do that. So one, I think about other things, how I can connect people to resources, and I need to go back to really heart listening instead of running the wheels and how I can help them, or what my experience was in a similar situation or in another story that can connect somehow. Um, I need to go back to that heart listening. That's the first thing. The second thing is I close my eyes a lot when I talk and when I want to say something about whatever it is, something somebody's talking about. And I thought I was the only one that did that. Yet me and you were talking on your podcast, and I was asking you, do you prefer audio or video? And one of the things you said was that you close your eyes when you talk too. And then Jen told me, I was telling her, our conversation. She's like, I close my eyes too. I was like, really? Oh my God. Like, just connecting how indigenous people, I would say it's indigenous people, because both you and her and me are indigenous. So, I would say it was like an indigenous value, but I do that a lot, and I thought it was only me, but I'm glad to know that other people do that too.
Yeah, I feel comfortable that way because, like, now it's live. Like, actually, folks, is my first live, I think. So it's, like, distracted. I'm like, "Where do I put my eyes?" And I'm like, I have all the distractions versus if I close my eyes and I just talk to you this way,
Mhm.
I feel like I would be so much more aligned and just really and clear about my thinking. But I feel like that movie, The Dog, "Squirrel, squirrel."
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I need to concentrate so I can really hear what they said, Jen.
Yeah.
Hey, Hollywood.
Yeah, I was watching, well, right before we got on here, my kids, so Grinch is very popular in this house. The new Grinch Christmas movie, and it's not only Christmas, we watch it throughout the year, but we've already watched it, like, I've been here since when Saturday night at 11 o'clock, and today's Monday. I think we've already watched it like 11 times, but we love that movie. And the new movie that we watched was A Secret Life of Pets. So today, when you were saying, squirrel, they were talking about some dogs were in the park and they're a butterfly, or, just that. And I totally can understand what you're saying, because I get that too. I do that. The other thing that happens to me a lot is like, I'll be there's a topic and I'll be responding to a topic, and then I tell this long old story just to get back to the topic, and then sometimes I lose myself and what was the topic again? And then after I finished telling the story, I was like, oh yeah, that's the topic. That's why I'm telling you the story. But I learned from Jennifer, actually, was that because we're storytellers,
Mhm.
and because our ways are that way, it takes somebody, when you're talking to them, mainly an indigenous person, uh, it might take them a little bit longer to explain
Mhm.
um, their point, because they are storytellers. And now in the Western world, we want we want to get to the point as fast as possible. Sometimes people are just like, just give me your response. Don't give me no story, just give me your response. And somebody, actually one of my friends, I was telling him this story, and he was like, April, it took you 20 minutes to tell me a question that I asked. You're going to have to change that. And I was like, no, you're just going to have to learn to listen, because I'm not going to change the way that I am, the way that I've been, and that my family has been for years, just so you can get to the point. The reason that I'm telling you this story is because the next time this happens, I won't have to tell you the story again. You'll already know why I have to go to the medicine man. I have to take him some cigarettes. I have to sit there and visit with him and listen to what's going on instead of just asking, can you do a sweat for my family? I'm not just going to go and say, hey, can you do a sweat? I have to. Anyways, so yeah, I do that a lot. So anybody that's listening, you're going to have a story that comes with me.
Well, you're right, and it's, if you were to explain it down, right, it's like, I just made me think of color as you were talking about that. Like, you could say, here's black and here's white. Here, go from A to B, right? Versus you're telling this journey and you're like, and you get to see this beautiful Christmas cactus bloom. And all along the way, all these hummingbirds came. And like, so you're creating this color and imagery, and people are creating their stories or listening versus like black and white, one, two, A, B. You lose so much essence, and there are so many things that someone may say in that windy sort of telling the story that may have landed for them,
Mm,
in a way that you may have no idea, right?
mhm.
So when I first did my podcast, the funny thing is that was sort of my thinking. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes a podcast, right? So my first guest was my mom, and we were talking about mothers. And so I told my mom, I'm like, okay, mom, when I do this, that means run. I was doing that for like, I'm like, mom, and it was funny. It was almost an hour later, and then we got done. She's like, honey, I'm like 70 years old, and you're asking me to tell you my life story in like 30 minutes. You're gonna have to rethink this. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, mom. And so she was the first guest on my podcast. And after that, I just threw away. It was funny because I even had a grid of like, here are my topics, here what I'm going to do. Like, I mapped it all out. And after my mom, I just threw that all out the window. And I
Mm,
just, whoever says yes, because there was a couple times where I was chasing a guest, and it was just really hard to book them. And I'm like, okay. And so the first year was a big learning curve of just throwing out the map. Now I just have a list of guests, and then whoever can make it can make it. Um, and not to be so scriptive and just sort of go with the flow. However, there are some things that have become sort of set, like your opening, you have the music and you're welcome, and then you have a flow, but within that flow, you don't know what's going to happen, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
anyway, I think we digressed from that one story.
Well, Jen says we want to make sure the listeners know all the details so that they really understand what we're saying. We want to include the backstory, also building relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can underscore the relationship building. I mean, I think, the essence of asking for help. When you build relationships, you then feel that you can trust, right?
Mm,
Part of feeling trust and being vulnerable is that you trust this person.
mhm,
And, a lot of us probably have gotten burned where we've said things or shared things and it's come around, or it landed in a place that you weren't very happy with. And so
mhm,
when that happens, a couple of times people just start to block, like armor up, like, I'm not telling anybody, I'm not going to ask for any help. I can do it all on my own. And as I was sharing earlier, there's downfalls for that. Like, your body physically will start to get sick, and I was saying when you were gone that um that I think that's why we're our society is sick, is because we're holding everything in,
mm,
releasing, we're not asking for help. And it takes a lot of courage. I'm not going to say it's easy. It takes a lot of courage to ask for help. And I always tell my guys, I have two adult young men, and I tell them, practice little things, like something as simple as, like, I don't understand this on the application, can you help me? What does this mean? Just
mm,
things like continue to keep asking for help in different ways. And I think part of that is also expressing yourself. So the more that you practice little steps every day, it makes it easier when you get to a place where if there's something really hard that you need help with. And I
Mhm.
feel like as Indigenous people, what I've learned anyway, and I'll say also, I want to just say just there, I think it just depends on the relationships, actually. A lot of people in my circle, they have always offered to help, or just like, if you need someone, I'm here. And that's because of the course of time of the relationships that, I've invested in, connecting with them, spending time
Mm.
with them. Yeah.
I love that you say that in the last part because I have people in my life that are like, I'll do anything for you, whenever you need, whenever you have an event, just call me. I'll volunteer. I don't want any money. Recently, somebody made me 50 ribbon bags, not ribbon skirts, but ribbon bags
Wow.
for an event that I was doing. And I was like, I want to pay you. She's all, no, I don't want any money. I don't ask for any money. I do this because I love you and I support you and I appreciate you and what you bring to me and what you bring to our community. So I love that you say that, asking for help and that relationship. And once a relationship is formed and once you do have a relationship with somebody, there's always a lot of people, for me, that are willing to step up to be a part or to help me whenever I need. And, talking about taking care of ourselves and asking for help, it possibly, will go into our next thing that we talked about with self-care. This year, in the beginning of the year in January, um, my niece passed away. And she was very close to my daughter. Her and my daughter, um, they lived together. My niece was older than her, but she always supported her and helped her through things. And she lived in South Dakota. So when my daughter graduated from high school, she went out to South Dakota to visit. She went out there every summer. So after graduation, she went out there and she ended up calling me and she's all like, Mom, I'm going to stay out here. And I was like, what? She's my only child. I'm like, what? And she was like, yeah, my mom, she calls her godmother, and she's my first sister, like my first big sister cousin. So she said, my mom already said that I can stay here, and I'm gonna be watching the kids. Because for me, it's always like, if you go to somebody's house or if you live there, you have to be contributing to the household in some way. So I always tell my daughter, you either have to go to school or you have to work. You have to do one or the other, because you can't just be sitting at home gaming. You can't be just sitting at home doing nothing. You have to do something. So when she went out there, she said, my mom already said I could stay here. I'm going to watch the kids. I want to go to school. So she went out there, she lived out there, and her daughter and my daughter, her cousin, my niece, they were really close. They ended up getting their first apartment together. She ended up helping her with adult responsibilities. Anyways, she passed away in January, and it was really important for my daughter um, to go out there, to try to get out there, because she was on life support. So my daughter rushed out there, and I came and I watched the kids, and I was going to be here from Thursday to Sunday with my kids, with my takoshas, my grandkids. Well, my daughter and her husband went to South Dakota. So my daughter flew out there. I was here on Saturday evening or Friday evening. I felt just really sick. Actually, during the whole week and picking them up, I was really sick, and um, it ended up happening to um, be rushed to the hospital, and I lost half the blood in my body, and I have an like all of these health problems were happening, and I got home, and it was me asking my daughter for help, or me asking. Okay, come over here on this side. Okay, come on. Sorry. You got to say hi though to my friends, okay? Say hi. Can you see? Okay. Just one moment, okay? Wolf pack. Okay. Wolf pack. Wolf pack. Here you go. Okay. See you in a bit, okay? Okay. Wait. Thank you. Okay. So I was in the hospital, and who knew that I would get so sick, But I was going through a lot too, and I always, I always, when somebody always goes in the hospital or when somebody gets really sick, my mom always told me that it was Creator's way of slowing you down and making sure that you were rested, that you were making sure that you were taking care of yourself, that you were making sure that you were okay, but you still have to ask for that help, you know? So, okay. Okay, Wolfpack. Hold on just a moment. Sissy, I don't know. Okay. Wolfpack. That one?
No.
That one?
No. This one.
Okay, go. There you go.
I want a video that all the wolf pack is there.
Okay, why don't we watch Diana? I'm almost done, okay?
No, I want to watch wolf pack.
Okay, hold on. Wolfpack. Okay, tell me which one it is.
This one.
Okay, here. Okay, go. Thank you. Okay. So self-care, taking care of yourself. I got really sick. Now I'm better. Make sure that we're taking care of yourself. One of the things that I found out though is because I'm supposed to be taking vitamins on a regular and I don't. So that affected it. Um, I have an ulcer that affected. There's a lot of things that affect it. And an ulcer can be from stress. It can be from a lot of different things. And in my life, I've had a stressful life in the past. We've all had a stressful life. COVID, not being able to connect with family, wondering where your next paycheck's going to be. Everybody's life is different and can be um, surrounded by a lot of different things. But the important thing is to take care of yourself. And I'm doing that now. Vitamins, regular doctor's appointments. And I always try to tell my friends and family, especially if they have insurance, like, let's take a trip to the doctor. I know that a lot of people don't like to go to the doctors because of the response that they might get. Um, However, I try to encourage my friends and family to go to the doctor because, yes, you might get a negative response, but you might also catch it before it might be bigger than what it can become. No, no.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. First of all, I just want to say condolences to your niece, loss of a relative. I know that's hard. And, when I think about self care, I know a lot of us have lost people we love during that time. And when we're not taking care of ourselves, when we have that loss, it's mentally and physically draining. So I wanted to just give my condolences to you on that. The other thing I want to say is I love how you model connection and like they're asking for help and you calmly did it and just so you did great modeling there. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really feel like self-care is like it's really about investing. In fact, this morning I was talking to my dad. We were chatting and catching up from the weekend, and he was really happy about how his doctor's appointment went and how well he's doing. He's in his mid 70s, um, and he still does a lot of ranch work. And he was telling me, he says, "Yeah, I was watching TikTok and I saw this 80-year-old man, 80 something years old, riding the horse, like no problem. And he was walking like, he's a young guy. Like he didn't look like he was old." He goes, "That's my goal, is I want to keep active. I want to keep young." Because I've heard both my parents say like their mind, and I call it the spirit, like their spirit feels young, but their body, their shell is what's aging, but they still have a young mindset. And my dad says, he says, "I have to remind myself that I'm not like 30 and I can throw the bale of hay like I used to. Like my shell, my body can't handle that, right?" So anyway, I wanted to kind of talk about self-care in the sense that those are some connections. But when I think of self-care, I also think of like all the elements of our lives, like components of our lives. Like we have relationships in our lives, we have our physical health, right? And then we have our spiritual peace, and then we have like our resources. Because I think of resources sort of like our home, our job, how we manage those resources. And when you look at those elements, they're all interconnected. If you are, strapped for resources, maybe money's being tight or whatever, or things are breaking down in the home or whatever, that causes stress. So that's a physical reaction. And then if you are with a partner and you guys don't see eye to eye on things, it affects the relationship, and then if we're not maybe having time for us to do some deep faith work or spiritual work, whatever connects with you. They're all interconnected. So it's like they're all. If one is really heavy, it's going to affect the other. So the question is, how do we check in with those pieces of our lives, and how do we create really simple, realistic goals to make our way towards being aware of them, right? And it's funny because someone, like, I think about like the physical piece. It is so easy, but it's just so hard. Like, you know, drink water every day. Like, there was a point where I was drinking a gallon of water and I felt good. My skin was glowing, I felt great. I felt light. And then, and I can tell when now I can really tell when I'm dehydrated. But something as simple as that, is feeling our body with good things, the food, right? It's so simple. I take naps. I'm a religious napper now. And I tell you, when I do those 20, 30-minute naps, oh my God, the next half of the day, I'm like powering through. I'm in a good mood. Walking, simple things, just taking a quick walk, those three things really don't cost a lot of money: drinking water, taking a nap, and walking. And that's a level of self-care. They're basic, right? But I also feel like to scale up of self-care is also investing in yourself. Like, what are you putting in your mind? Are you reading? Are you listening to podcasts that will help you, challenge you? Like, I love that about you. I feel like that's a form of self-care to some degree, is like you're pushing yourself, you're elevating yourself. You're like, I'm going to do this challenge for the month of January. And there are probably some days you're like, what am I going to say? Who am I going to bring on? I don't want to talk. Okay, I'm just going to do this, but
Yes.
just that's showing commitment. You're also modeling, right? You're modeling, like, I said I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. But that's a form of self-care in a way of you learning and really stretching yourself to see, oh my gosh, I can do this, right? So anyway, wanted to mention those things about mainly like the different components and what can you do in each of those areas to expand. One of the things I try to do every year, I think I missed 1 year in the past 7 years, and that's a vision board. I do a vision board of what I want in the next year. I did one a couple years ago, which was a 5-year one, and I have it up on my wall as a reminder of, like, okay, and it's really crazy. On the vision board, half of those things have happened, and some intentional and some like creator, I feel like spirit, universe just sort of open doorways. And part of that, I think, the self-care is because I said no to certain things. When you start to say no to things, those doors shut but new doors open. And so I feel like that's one of the things that is really hard for us as individuals, is we say yes, and we should be saying no more, because when you overextend yourself, you get tired, you get burnt out. And many times I've learned that because I travel so much. And I'll just, in my last comment, but I realized too, like, I'm like my dad, like, I'm like, okay, I'm not as young as I used to be. And I literally, from mid-September to a week ago, I was traveling almost every week, and I was exhausted. And I told myself, next year, okay, I'm going to rethink that, and I'm going to stay an extra day after, or come a day early, because that's what I need physically. So part of where I'm going with that is that you have to ask for what you need. That's part of self-care, saying no Yes, and I need an extra day or whatever that may be. So for me anyway, like I would come in an extra day, rest, sleep, adjust to the time zone, be settled into my environment, look at my notes, get ready to go. Day that I'm on, I'm on. I'm not like jet lag or anything like that. So that's a lot, in terms of some of the self-care pieces that I think is important.
It's a lot, but self-care for taking care of yourself, making that first step can be a lot, but it changes things. I love that you say those things, simple things, water, walk, and sleep. Yes.
Yeah.
And nap.
It's yeah.
Yes. Those are all great things. So I appreciate you um definitely coming on here and talking about these things and giving our audience just the thought and also the vision board or the dream board. Jen is actually the one that introduced me to that, and she always talked about to me about how she um hung a picture of Hawaii up in her house, and her and Glenn, her partner, would um manifest and talk about when they were going to be in Hawaii and what they were going to be doing when they were in Hawaii. And now they're in Hawaii, they live there. That's their forever home,
Yeah.
and just being able to do that. I recently had one of my friends on here, Kara, and I really love Kara because she's a mom, she's a wife, she has 4 children, one's graduating, one graduated last year, and then 2 littles. But she calls me her glow stick, and I appreciate that. And when I told her I was going to be in Vegas and I would be back, and maybe when I got back that we can get together and have a game night or even a vision board making session with her and the kids. I'm always trying to engage them or show them new things, or just be that auntie that can be that auntie. So I love that you say about vision board, because coming the new year is less than a couple of weeks away. And I also have a vision board that I did 2 years ago. Half of those things are to have been accomplished, but I'm gonna take those things that haven't been accomplished and put them on my vision board. I don't want to forget them because they were ultimately something that I wanted or asked was thinking about. So I'm going to take those things that I haven't yet accomplished, put them on my new dream board and add some additional things. I also appreciate you saying about boundaries. I'm one for boundaries. I don't like to be in a toxic environment. I don't like toxic relationships. I don't like gossip. I don't like a lot of things. And I try to put up boundaries for those things. And I try to avoid going to those things. My daughter and her family, they're very much homebodies. They like to stay home, they like to cook, they like to do games at home, and I just that's a whole lot that I just told you, but I just want to thank you for saying all those things because it's a reminder to us. We have the ability to say no. We might be prone to say yes, but is it good for our self-care? If we say no, if we add an extra day, we need to make sure that we're thinking about ourselves, our own health, and our own wellness before we give to other people. Because we can give and give and give and give. I used to be like that. We can give and give and give, and then just be like hanging
Mhm.
the next day, or not well. So thank you for sharing all of those things. And I just want to remind our audience that yes, it's important for you to take care of yourself, self-care, connecting, and also self-care, connecting, and maybe taking naps.
No, I
Asking for
appreciate you.
help.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming in. I feel like everything that we talked about, connecting, self-help, or asking for help, and self-care, I mean, they're all interrelated. And
Mhm.
and I think one of the biggest things that have helped me on all of these journeys is just faith, right? I know that we all walk different ways in how we connect to something bigger than us. And I for me anyway, even if it's how tired I am before I go to bed, I just always am giving some form of gratitude when I go to sleep.
Mm,
When I get up, I do, if I'm not doing something long, I always do some form of gratitude of like, yes, I can still move my body. Thank you. Thank you.
mhm,
Thank you, universe. Thank you, creator. Thank you, team spirit. I really believe when I say team spirit, I think of like my ancestors, people
mm,
who gone before, and I talk to them actually every day, and I asked them to help me and guide me. And I'm like, I'm getting on live. Can you please be with me? So they're right. But I feel like that is my foundation in all these practices is having gratitude and faith in having them guide me because I don't know, right? And so I just listen to my body and whatever my body's telling me, this feels right. Okay, I'm going to do it. Feels wrong. Okay, I'm not going to do it. So
mhm.
our body is so powerful, and I feel like if we listen to our bodies more, we'll be in a much better place. Like right now, it says my body says stand up and drink more water. So
Mm,
that's what my body needs now. But
yeah.
anyway, I wanted to say thank you, Akahat, for this opportunity. It's been fun. It went by so fast.
Yeah. You're so welcome. And where can people get in contact with you if they wanted to? Is your email?
Yes, they can go to my email. You can go to my website, realnativeroots.com. And it's a podcast. So if you have a story, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have you on my podcast. And then come listen and hear some of the wisdom. So I basically interview Native people across the country, all forms, all life. My mom was one guest, and I've had different elders come on, and it's just an opportunity for them to share their story. I feel
Mm,
like stories, a beautiful way to connect us all, and we get so much wisdom from hearing people's stories. Uh,
mhm.
so check me out. I'd love for you all to come follow and hear some of the stories that I was able to capture.
Awesome. Well, Vicky, thank you again for joining us today. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you're doing in Indian country. And I'm just really thankful now that I have a connection with you, the next journeys that we might share together. I appreciate all the great advice that you've given today. May you have a prosperous new year, a happy and healthy, prosperous new year. And we'll talk again soon.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well wishes, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Remember, I'll be here again tomorrow. I don't know what time, but look out for that posting of when I'll be live again. Thank you for being here. May you all have a great day. Remember to take care of yourself. Take a nap if you need to. Drink some water. Make sure that you journal or treat yourself to some self care. And we'll see you soon. Have a great year. Have a great day. Thank